You're listening to The Back 40, the podcast for Ontario farmers, covering topics and issues that matter most to Ontario agriculture. Brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance, bringing the ag community together one podcast at a time. I'm the host of The Back 40, Mike Bachner, agribusiness specialist at Trillium Mutual Insurance. There's a great deal in the news these days about the job market and how many companies are having difficulty filling positions. A lot of those positions that might have been filled a few years ago, that doesn't seem to be the people out there that are either able to do it or are interested in doing that. That seems to be a fairly new concept for a lot of people. But in the ag industry, we've faced a labor shortage and an expert shortage for many, many years here. Today, we're talking with Mike Bachner. Mike is the Vice President of Grasslands Recruitment Specialists. And we're going to talk a little bit about the state of labor and employment in the ag industry. Mike, welcome to the Back 40.
Thanks, Mike. Good day, and thanks for the opportunity to participate in your program.
Happy to have you here. So I'm going to start with a really easy question here for you. How did you get started into the recruitment business?
Oh, that's an interesting question. A little bit of a story, but I'll try to do the Coles notes. So I'm a farm-raised kid with a degree in agronomy from the University of Guelph. And early part of my career, I was involved in direct sales and marketing to farm, right, in both plant and animal agriculture. And I worked with a fellow who, we made a really good team. Let me put it that way in our business efforts. And he said, one of these days I'm going to start a company and I want you in on it with me. And I said, yeah, sure. Okay, fine. And anyway, after about 6 years of him asking me to join him, I decided to make the switch. And that's how I got into agricultural recruiting, frankly. I've always had a love of natural sciences. Coming from a farm, you kind of understand and you get what ag's all about. And I've always had a deep desire to help people. And I just thought, to help great talent find excellent career opportunities and to help excellent employers find really good talent to help grow their businesses, that's just a really good combination. So that's, in a Coles Notes version, how I got involved in agricultural search.
So depending on who you talk to, numbers vary. There's grads coming out of University of Guelph. We've been told anywhere from 2 jobs to 4 jobs available there for each one of them that are graduating. What's your take on how that looked? Is that accurate or is that inaccurate?
Well, statistics will say that 1 in 8 people across the country is involved in the ag and food system to one capacity or another. Now, that includes everyone from a food processing plant to the CEO of a transnational company. We've always had a shortage of talent in the agribusiness space. The reason for that is that typically employers want to hire a farm-raised kid who went to the University of Guelph or another institution for post-secondary education. Secondarily, they'll like to hire a farm-raised person who didn't go to an ag post-secondary education. Thirdly, a farm kid who has post-secondary education in something else. And fourth, someone who just has a really full toolbox of transferable skills. Now, if we continue to want to focus on farm-raised talent, well, there's fewer farmers every day. So therefore, there's fewer farm kids. So therefore, there's fewer farm kids who want to go to post-secondary education. That talent pool shrinks every day. So we need to try to get outside of that box in some regard and look to recruit and attract from other segments of the economy and other segments of academia. To answer your question, there's good opportunities. And whether it's 3 jobs, 4 jobs, 5 jobs, 2 jobs, the bottom line is we are not graduating enough students out of the programs that are pertinent in our industry segments to fill the demand. So the funnel is not full. They'll have entry-level positions are plentiful, and there's lots of choice for new grads.
Yeah, and it also explains why the ag industry being such a small group of professionals there, that the people that we run into in one capacity or another, we often see them show up again in a different capacity. I've often said there's a bunch of us retreads around. We just keep showing up in different positions.
Ooh, retread's a bit of a harsh term.
I put myself in that category.
Oh, that's fair, Mike. And you and I know each other for a while. There's always going to be churn, no question, right? The churn that happens is from people just looking to benefit themselves or to grow in their career or achieve their aspirations. And that's a noble thing. Everybody has motivational factors for making a career switch, and those are okay as long as they do those career switches with due consideration to the future, but also to their credibility and their reputation in the industry. For a long time, we've been concerned about the overall aging up of our agricultural industry, of our agricultural sector. You go to any sort of industry meeting, and we've always been concerned about some of the thinning or the graying of the hair in the audience, right?
Yep.
But it's interesting in recent years, and certainly most definitely at the recent outdoor farm show, I've been really encouraged with the aging down of the industry. There's lots of youth again involved in the industry and in all capacity, and that's just only going to play out really, really well for our industry going forward.
So how do you go about matching an applicant with a job?
We have a very deliberate, structured, and confidential process of discovery, quite frankly, Mike. From the client side, an employer side, we do a really deep dive into their go-to-market strategy, into their business, into their culture, and get a sense of the kind of people they enjoy and like to have on their team. And then from the positions point of view, we also do a deep dive into that. We work with job descriptions and postings. We understand the scope of the position. We understand a day in the life of the person that's in this position, for instance. We also understand the qualifications, the KPIs, key performance indicators, the experience that's required, the soft skills, but we also take it to another dimension. Part of our standard business practice is to understand the type fit or the cultural fit of the person entering into this potential position. And then from a candidate or the career seeker's point of view, we also do a deep dive there. And whether they're passive or active career seekers, we try to understand their past experiences, their current state, and their future aspirations. We assess their soft skills, their hard technical skills. We assess their career trajectory and their potential fit into the industry sector, the potential clients within that industry sector, but then also the positions with those clients within that industry sector, if you will. So then we discuss the opportunities as they arise. Sometimes we make discreet and confidential introductions for candidates to clients who would welcome that outreach from us and who may not have an active position, but they'll quite often create an opportunity for that talent, if you will, to capture it for their team. So once we've done some discovery with our clients regarding themselves and also the position and our candidates, we take that information, then we'll do our own due diligence and we'll understand and assess the talent pool that's available for that particular position or future positions in that particular marketplace with that client or in that sector. Most often it's about geography, as we can talk about with regard to relocation, abilities and that sort of thing. We have enough experience that we consider ourselves market masters. We understand the realities of various sectors, the talent availability, the trend lines, and what the availability is in any one particular job category and or geography and that sort of thing. So we'll understand the availability of the talent pool and then work with our client and our candidates to talk about that before we'll, try to make a match happen or assume a search project. But we really do try to understand and express that understanding of the marketplace. We like to think that our work is much more about tomorrow than today. And we say that we're not algorithms, but we're real people helping people. So we really have that desire to achieve that deep understanding. We take pride in making connections between people who otherwise probably wouldn't have gotten connected if it wasn't for our effort. And we like to benefit the industry as a result.
When you switch jobs or when you come into a position new, there's always that learning curve of, do I fit and how do I fit? And is this company exactly what I thought it was? I applied for the job. And using yourselves as a go-between there, that should take some of that out. You should have already done some of that matching part there. Hopefully be a reasonable fit when you get there.
A curated and structured process of screening, vetting, and discovery really does help achieve that objective, Mike, no question. It's never been in our business practice just to see, okay, well, there's a couple of keyword matches on this resume. Let's see if it fits, right? No, it's a much more in-depth and laborious process, much more detailed. And we find that our clients and our candidates benefit from that depth of understanding.
So you talked a little bit about skill sets and transferable skills. What sort of skills do we need in the industry?
How long do you have?
Well, let's sort of boil it down to some of the basics.
Well, it's interesting. There's been lots of discussion from various think tanks, the Conference Board of Canada, OABA, the University of Guelph with Synthesis did some planning reports in recent years. And there's a lot of commonality into what is required whether it's within ag or outside of ag, as far as soft skills and transferable skills. And I've just took a few pieces from some articles that I've archived and used over the course of time. But, good written and oral communication skills, obviously, is sort of number one, especially if you're in a farmer facing role. You've got to be able to articulate the value of a product or service. You've got to be able to understand their business. You've got to be able to position value and why they would want to adopt or practice or buy a product or adopt a technology. So you have to be able to work with customers, your managers, your coworkers, internal, externally to your organization. Thinking critically to evaluate and solve problems, for instance, because it's all about understanding the real world, being able to adapt to changing circumstances and to be able to provide solutions. Setting goals and priorities, using your initiative, energy, and persistence to get it done. That's that get her done sort of phrase that we sometimes hear about, right? Next would be taking responsibility for continuously upgrading your skills. So the constant lifelong learning approach. Being able to cope with a fast-paced, constantly changing work environment is also listed. I'm not sure of any other industry on the planet that is changing at the pace that agribusiness is. If you went to the Outdoor Farm Show this year, you saw innovation awards, you saw specific innovation displays, you saw technologies being displayed that we haven't seen certainly in the last 3 to 5 years, robotics, AI, automation of all sorts and sizes. So it's a very fast-paced changing industry. And then also being a good team player versus in a silo, because employers are flattening, right? And they want their teams of employees to be able to work collaboratively versus having the management hierarchy necessary to do it. The OABA, Ontario Agribusiness Association, conducted a survey as well, and they represent the Ontario feed, grain, and crop input sector. They did a member survey regarding their hiring of college and university students, and the top 5 sought after qualifications and applicants are these: motivation, the ability to communicate. We've heard that. Practical skills, ag knowledge, which is sort of self-serving, and then some formal education. And the gaps that they identified in that survey were practical skills, the ability to communicate, maturity and motivation. So here's what they want. Here's what there's not finding. So they're very closely correlated. And then finally, the Synthesis University of Guelph report that was entitled Planning for Tomorrow 2.0, they surveyed sort of agriculture and food respondents. And again, their top skills were communication, leadership, relationship building, teamwork and collaboration, and project management. And then they had the technical skills of business acumen, software knowledge, data analysis, succinct technical writing, knowledge of new tech and innovations, and regulatory knowledge. And from our perspective, as a recruitment agency that covers Canada and has work in the States, one of the things that we really screen for is ability to relocate. Because as we understand, agribusiness happens in the country, in the rural areas.
Right.
It doesn't happen in the urban centers. So are you willing to go to rural, name your province, and be, not necessarily close to an urban center, enjoy the benefits that it has, but are you willing to adopt that sort of lifestyle? So relocation is a very important parameter that is sought after in this industry.
That might be one that's overlooked a lot of times, is that ability or that desire to relocate, because it's quite a culture shock to grow up in a place like Toronto and then move out to a small place like St. Mary's area. I know my wife grew up in Mississauga, and she certainly found that there was a bit of a culture shock initially when she moved out to rural Ontario.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Those of us who live in rural Ontario really enjoy it. We love going to the city. We love going to urban areas. Sometimes it's a good place to visit and a good place to leave. It all depends on what your comfort level is. But the reality of it all is, this is a very large country. We're all separated. We have a lot of distance to cover, a lot of rural areas, and that's all about farming, and that's all about agriculture and trying to feed the world. And our industry is the industry that provides the products and services that farmers use to feed the world. That's as complicated as it needs to be. And if you're willing to provide your services, your talent, apply your talent in that work world, it needs to be thought about that it's going to be in the rural settings.
Is your organization in need of funding for a capital project? Trillium Mutual's Roots Community Fund provides funding towards projects such as renovations, expansions, and equipment purchases that support rural Ontario. Roots helps ensure that these organizations will remain a crucial part of the local community. To learn more about Roots, including how to apply, visit our website at trilliummutual.com and click Community at the top of the page. Now, you talked about the farm-facing jobs that we get, the need to be able to communicate and understand. And we often talk about this as being able to speak to farmers on their level and understand their businesses. How difficult is that particular skill to find in applicants?
Well, it can be, quite frankly, Mike, right? I had an experience earlier in my career where a rather senior farmer took me around the northwest side of the barn in the middle of the winter and wanted to have a chat outside in the wind. And, they're going to test you. I mean, that's maybe really, if it's positioning a product or service to a customer, rural, agricultural, or any other part of the economy, it's all about establishing trust and rapport. And it's all about establishing value and understanding. And so if you can identify business needs, business pain points, offer, advocate solutions in a consultative manner, you'll have an audience, right? So really what it boils down to is your approach of understanding, your sincere approach of understanding your client, your prospect, and trying to understand exactly where you can help them achieve their business goals as opposed to push a product. I don't think anybody in the marketplace in any other part of the economy, whether you're a consumer or anyone else, you don't appreciate that sort of approach, right? Where you're being pressured or things are being shoved to you. You want to create an opportunity to buy as opposed to be pushed in a sell. Right?
Yeah, that was just what I was going to say. Everybody likes to buy. Nobody likes to be sold on something. We like to think it's our idea that we purchased that. Interesting. You talk about the northwest corner of the barn. I've been there initially when I was selling feed. I got maneuvered a couple of times so that I was standing in the wind and they were standing in the shelter. I found quickly that if you could reverse that, you'd almost always get invited into the house.
Yeah,
that's where you want to go. That's some of those soft skills that you learn as you're going there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Mike. Again, it's that commonality, right? The trust and rapport. And if you can establish commonality. So to that end, anybody that has a little bit of primary agricultural experience in their background kind of gets an idea what happens on a livestock operation, what happens in a cash crop operation, what happens in a horticultural operation. That commonality, those talking points that you can achieve credibility, it's going to be very important. So that does return back to that requirement that the industry wants someone that has that bit of experience. Again, in the farmer facing or the customer facing roles, it's more critical. The further you get removed from that, it's much less critical.
So you mentioned it. There's fewer and fewer farms. Farm families are smaller than they used to be. So obviously fewer kids. And there's a certain proportion of those that are going to do anything to get away from the farm. They have no desire to return back. So our pool is shrinking all the time. So how do we go about filling some of these positions here? Is it the answer more school spaces, more recruitment to schools like to OAC? What is the solution to filling these positions?
Well, you heard me rhyme off sort of the four main categories that the customers or clients, employers like to hire from. I think what we need to do is try to break out of those. Absolutely. And any client, any company, any employer who's going to be able to become more diverse in their thinking is going to benefit in that regard. We just need to look at more diverse talent pools. We need to have more promotion awareness of the industry and the career opportunities that it entails, that it holds, whether it's in the science stream or the business stream of the industry. I mean, our industry of agri-food still suffers from an identification of only primary agriculture. That's not a bad thing because we need primary producers to drive the rest of the
It's where it all starts
and to feed the world. I mean, that's understandable, but collectively we need to try to help or other prospects, other candidates from other areas of the economy and education to understand the huge range of career opportunities. It's one of the most sustainable industries on the planet. There's lots of programs that are being developed to try to build awareness. So, BioTalent Canada, for instance, they have a national talent strategy to address the bioeconomy, that skills shortage in that bioeconomy. Agri-Food Canada is developing a national ag labor strategy. OFA, they have the Breakfast from the Farm program, right, which is a urban reach out, a little bit of that, link urban to rural and help them understand. And maybe that's going to tip someone off in the audience and the participants to maybe follow up and ask some questions about a career opportunity. The Fields to Forks campaigns that we see on local media, that helps build awareness of agriculture or agri-food. The Canadian Agricultural Partnership, the Canadian Agricultural Human Resources Council, Ag Careers, with their Farm Your Future, talking about unlimited career opportunities. Utensil, which is a series of educational modules on career opportunities. The Real Dirt on Farming, that publication that's in its second iteration, for inclusion in post-secondary schools. I mean, there's lots of different ways that the industry is starting now, or has been in recent years, to try to increase awareness and position the industry as a viable career path versus just having a job.
Yeah, and we had Rene Van Acker on, Dean of OAC, and he talked about part of the problem being that defining what is agriculture. And everybody thinks, as you said, you brought up that primary production. But there's a lot of industries that are crying for ag professionals.
Huge.
I look at my own position here, and I work for an insurance company as an ag specialist. I would never, ever have dreamed of ending up here. It never occurred to me that somebody would be looking for that skill set along. And maybe that's part of why we don't attract enough of these farm kids, is they think that they're going back to the farm again.
There is that, right? And that's great. I mean, we need to have generational change on the farm as well. And whether it's conventional cash crop, whether it's horticulture, whether it's livestock supply managed or not, we need to have those people going back to the farm and continuing that generation. But really, everyone in our industry, everybody who's involved in the industry, needs to be having the conversations to highlight these opportunities beyond just the farm kids, right?
Yeah.
For instance, I'm at the University of Guelph campus next week, and I deliver a workshop on interviews and resumes and some realities of the industry, et cetera, et cetera. But the session's open to all faculties. Yes, I'm working with the SFOAC, the Student Federation of the OAC, on that, organizing it all, but it's open to all faculties. So anybody from anywhere on that campus, come and just understand what some of the opportunities are. The employee shortage that we have is just driving technology and automation. Right. As I mentioned at the Outdoor Farm Show, you could see all those displays, robotic automation in all areas of primary ag and agribusiness. Right. For instance, we have a current cert with one of our Western team for a software developer for an equipment company in Western Canada. A software developer for an equipment company. 5 years ago, we weren't working on searches like that.
Nobody thought that would even be necessary. Why would you bother? And yet now we're seeing a lot of technology there that is really exciting, like the first autonomous tractors commercially available this year from John Deere.
Absolutely.
And I found most interesting, maybe at the Outdoor Farm Show, was that there's a building there that always had the robotic milkers in it, and the milkers are gone now. It's not even seen to be particularly innovative anymore. That's just been incorporated into the industry as the gold standard in many cases.
Exactly right. The thousands of companies that are involved in ag tech in Canada and North America today, there will be still that continued first point of contact with farmers, right? The sales at all levels, whether it's, direct to farm, whether it's wholesale, retail, supplier level, that sort of thing. Those are going to be important. There's going to be managerial roles of all shapes and sizes, all the way from, local facility management to V-level, C-level positions in the industry, operations roles, logistics roles, finance, R&D and product development, product management, QA and QC, quality assurance, quality control, because of the attention that's being placed on security in the food system and purity and quality in that regard. And don't forget the trades, right? Don't forget about millwrights. Don't forget about technicians. Don't forget about programmers. Don't forget about designers. As ag tech continues to grow and enter our industry because of the reasons we've talked about, we're going to have to make sure people know how to manage data, people know how to manage and operate some of these technologies that we have available.
Yeah, I think that you bring up an interesting point there, that a lot of the new job opportunities are going to be in that tech, but we can't forget about some of the others too. I mean, you still have farm equipment that breaks and somebody has to fix it. And I don't mean the software on it. I mean, like, physically, there's a piece of metal that broke. How do I fix that? And we still need those people.
Absolutely. We have demand for that regularly.
I'm sure. Like, it's, I think in my area here, where there used to be 3 guys in the area that did repairs, and they did a lot of repairs, bring it to them, they'd weld it up. And they've all retired, and 2 of them have actually passed away. And there hasn't been that many shops anymore around the countryside. You have to look harder to find somebody to fix that stuff.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
So what gets you up in the morning to do this job? What keeps you interested in this part of the work in agriculture?
Well, as I talked about before, ag is in my blood. It's in my background. It's in my education. It's everything I've ever done, right? We always say it's kind of under your fingernails and it's never coming out. Those of us who are in the industry. But, my motives are, as I stated before, to help people and to drive improvement and a benefit to the industry. Serving my industry in this capacity for the last 26 plus years. I'm aging myself here, but it's fulfilling. It's just extremely fulfilling to see talent or a candidate grow in their personal and professional lives to achieve their objectives and to progress in their career. And it's fulfilling to see our client, our employer client, capture that talent to help drive their business forward. Ultimately, the industry benefits because of that interaction. Is it easy? Oh, gosh, no.
Well, there'd be a lot more people doing it if it was easy.
Is it fulfilling? Absolutely, it is. Yeah. The bottom line is, in our capacity as search consultants that specialize in the agribusiness, agri-food space, we just need to keep bringing more talent to the table. There's no lack of work. There's no lack of work on our desks. There's no lack of demand for good people. We just need to encourage and introduce and attract more people to our industry any way that we possibly can.
Are we looking more down the road? Like you mentioned before, there's a lot of gray hairs in the industry out there. Some of us decide to retire. Are we looking at a bit of a crisis there to refill some of those jobs of people that are going to leave the industry as they get older?
That's a general thing across all areas of the economy, right? The boomers are aging. The various other generations that are coming up are smaller. Yes. The short answer, Mike, is yes, but it's nothing that we haven't been used to or haven't been anticipating. There's been a lot of talk about the great retirement or the great resignation or the quiet quitting and all these various other buzzwords that are in the press. And yes, as I said, for a long time, we've been concerned about the aging up of our industry, but I think we're turning a bit of a corner on that. That being said, we do have gaps in certain age ranges and certain generations or demographics in our industry that we'll need to pay attention to. But, I'm encouraged by seeing the general aging down in some of segments of the industry, especially the tech space, right? That's very attractive.
It's actually a place where a lot of young people really fit nicely because they grew up with a lot of the technology and this idea of computerizing all of our farm equipment and gathering all the data. I mean, they've grown up with that in other parts of their life. So they figure that's a natural thing that should happen in the ag industry.
Absolutely. You're right.
So if people are either looking to find a job or if you've got a company out there that is looking to fill a job, how do they find Grasslands Recruitment Specialist?
First off, just so they understand who we are, we're an executive search firm. We're headhunters. What we do is we only serve the agribusiness, agri-food space across Canada and into the US. We work in all the various sectors of the industry. We work at all levels of the job ladder. And we work with companies of all shapes and sizes, from the local farm supply center to the transnational. We tend to work not so much on farm or the technical sort of things. We work in sales, marketing, management, product development, research to a certain extent. So our website, a new one about to be launched in October 2022, is www.grasslandsgroup.com. You'll find all kinds of information on that site as far as contact information, the emails from our recruitment team. We have 5 recruitment specialists across the country, but we have people that in home-based remote offices that are local to their marketplace. We range from Quebec all the way through to British Columbia with our personnel.
That's awesome. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today, Mike.
Mike, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
We have been listening to Mike Bachner, Vice President of Grasslands Recruitment Specialists, and we've been talking about the state of the labor market in the ag industry. You've been listening to The Back 40, brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance. Be sure to subscribe to The Back 40 wherever you find your favorite podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. The Back 40, bringing the ag community together, one podcast at a time. I'm Mike Bachner. Until next time, take care and stay safe.